Okay, in this video, let's look at a couple other options for quartal voicings. So we've already looked at 5 notes. Let's look at 3 and 4 notes. And obviously, the fewer notes that you have with these voicings, the more flexible they are, right? Just basic math. If your average voicing has only three notes in it, then there's a lot more applications for that, right? The more notes you have, the more it restricts the scale and chord choices you could apply it over. So just to review quartal, Q-U-A-R-T-A-L. So here's an example of a quartal voicing, just stacked fourths. Okay, so let's look at, like I said, we started with the most dense, which was 5, right? So let's look at 4 notes and 3 notes. So we'll start with 4 notes, and then we'll go more open, more applications, because like I said, fewer notes in your voicing, more potential applications. So a 4 note would just look like this, for example. Okay, and even with these 4 notes, I'm going to have to split it with 2 hands, right? Because it's just too much of a stretch to play with 1 hand. So this is a 2-handed voicing, which, just like with 5-note voicings, doesn't necessarily mean that the bottom note is tonic. It could be, but not necessarily, right? Or I shouldn't say tonic, it's the root of the chord. This note down here could be the root of the chord, but not necessarily. So let's look at this one. So we've got E, A, D, G, right? Okay, so this could be the root, in which case now we've got a wonderful minor sus voicing, right? E minor, minor sus, minor 7 sus. Or we could call this more accurately, jazz people would call this minor 11, right? Because we've got the minor third, we've also got our flat 7, so that makes it minor 7. But we've also added this 4th or 11, so you can call it minor 7 sus, add 3, I guess. There's a little bit of debate about whether you consider this, because we've got both the 4th and the 3rd, do you consider this a sus voicing that we've added a 3rd to, or do you consider this a minor 7 voicing that we've added a 4th or an 11th? So I would call this minor 7 sus, or I think even a little more accurate, I would call this minor 7 add 4, or minor 7 add 11, right? Because if it's a minor 7, that tells you it's definitively got flat 3 and flat 7, and we're adding the 4th or the 11th. So that's how I would prefer for clarity. So I would call this E minor 7 add 11. Okay, so that's if the E is the root, right? But I could put this over A, for example, right? And now this would give me, if there's an A in the bass, which again, I don't have to play because the bass player could be playing it, that would make this a very good A7 sus voicing, right? Where we've got 5, root, suspended 4th, flat 7. Okay, what else could this be? It could be a lot of different things. This could be the upper structure of a C major 6-9, right? Let me play that C a little lower. Right? So we've got the 3rd, the 6th, the 9, and the 5. Right? So it's a rootless C major 6-9. Okay. This could also be F major 6-9, right? Very beautiful voicing, right? So we've got our 3rd and our 7, the 6 and the 9. It's a wonderful voicing for F major 7, 6-9. Okay. It doesn't really do much for us over G, because we don't have a 3rd or a 4th, so we're not really going to put it over G. Doesn't really do a whole lot for us over B. It just sounds like an upper structure of a 5-note quartal, right? But technically, I guess you could play this and it would be like a minor 7 add 11 flat 6. So it's kind of like a maybe an Aeolian sound. But once again, because it's all stacked fourths, if you put it over a B, we don't really use this and think of the B as the root. Okay? So we've covered all of the white notes, right, that we could put this over. So if this is over E, it's E minor 7 add 11, right? If we put it over F, beautiful F major 7 6 9. We don't really do it over G, doesn't give us anything. Over A, it's a little bit bland but functional as a perfect A7 sus 4. Not a lot of color, but it works. We can put it over a C for a C major 6 or C major 6 9. And we could put it over D for a sus as well. This would be a sus. I wouldn't call it sus 9 because even though there is a 9 in here, calling it sus 9 implies that it's actually dominant. But we're not playing a flat 7 in here, so I would really just call this sus. D sus, implying it's really just the D sus triad, right? Maybe D sus add 2 to indicate that there's an E in there. Okay, but this can be played over other bass notes in addition to the white notes. So that's just covering the white notes, right? So what else could this be used over? Well, the one that pops up right away, although it's not a great inversion for it, is technically all of these notes are in B flat Lydian, right? It just sounds a little bit weird because you've got the sharp 11 right down here on the bottom, so I wouldn't really use it for that. Anything else you do over these black notes is probably going to be kind of a polychord sound. Right, maybe a Phrygian voicing here, possibility. But basically, once again, because we've got 4 notes, it kind of restricts us, just like when we had 5 notes. Not a ton of options here. Okay, so let's look at 3 notes. So if I take away the E, well, now I've only got 3 notes in my quartal. And notice how I'm fingering it, by the way. Thumb, index, pinky. That's pretty common, but you could also do thumb, middle, pinky, whatever is more comfortable. Okay, so now we got a lot more options. So we could put this over basically any of the white notes, and it's going to give us something for the most part, right? So if we put this over C, it's like a C6 chord, 6-9. We're just missing the 3rd. And if we put it over D, it's a very basic D sus, right? If we put it over E, once again, it's an E minor 7, add 11 or add 4. If we put it over F, it's an F major 6-9. It doesn't really give us anything over G. It's what rock and pop people might call a G2 or a G sus2. But remember, in jazz, we don't think that this chord really exists. We just consider this to be just an inversion of D sus, right? So this is kind of like D sus, but with these 2 notes up top, and then we're putting it over G. So this would be D sus / G, basically. Okay, it does give us a very basic but functional A7 sus, right? Because all you really need is the flat 7 and the suspended 4th. Doesn't really do much for us over B. I guess it's one possible choice if you wanted a minor 7 flat 6 sound, like if you wanted to imply Aeolian, right? Right, but not used a whole lot. But now that we've only got 3 notes, we've got some more uses from black keys. So I could put this over B flat, and it gets me a very nice B flat major 13 voicing. That's very simple and open, right? There's my 3rd, natural 3rd, natural 7, natural 13. Right? I could also play this over E flat on paper. Works, right, as a Lydian, major 7, sharp 11, right? We've got the 3rd, the 7th, and the sharp 11, I would just make sure there's a lot of space between the root and the sharp 11. Because when it's up here, it sounds a little dissonant. Right? So, a couple more uses when you're just using 3 notes in quartals. Okay, so hopefully that's a useful review of quartal voicings. I encourage you to start thinking about them as options. We especially like to use them in modal jazz on non-functional chord progressions.